Hey folks, we can get started. I'm just getting everything set up here. All right, so as usual, welcome to Study Hall. I'm gonna start off here by taking a question. We've got a question here. So as usual, feel free to just post your questions in. Don't worry about interrupting me if I'm in the middle of another question, or if I'm in the middle of the material or anything like that. Yeah, don't feel shy. Just feel free to get all your questions in there so I can take them sooner rather than later. Let me just make an adjustment to the scene here. There it is. All right, I'm just trying to move this around. That's better. Okay, cool. So advanced number 7, it looks like. Is odd without modulo. Oh, hello. I wonder if I'm allowed to use the Modulo function from the previous challenge. So given a number is odd without modulo returns whether the past number is odd or not. I guess we could just cheat and use floor division and then multiplication. We could use the modulo function from the previous challenge from number 6 here. Yeah, so let's pull this in. Okay. So usually we could just say return num mod 2 equals 0. This will be true if it's even, so we actually want to do equals 1 for if it's odd. But we don't want to use this modulo. Oops, what happened there? Deleted my test. We don't want to use the modulo operator. So this would work, but obviously we got the modulo operator in there. So what I'm thinking is if num floor divided by 2 let's just look at this. So we've got 17 here. So half of 17, or 17 over 2 is going to be what, 8.5? 17 floor divided by 2. We'll just run this real quick. We'll get 8. You'll see 8 down here. That's 8. So if 8 times 2 again, right? So this number is 8 times 2 is not going to be 17. So return num floor divided by 2 times 2 equals num. So in the case of odd numbers, I think that's going to be false. So I want to do just not equals num, I guess. That should do. So that's true. Let's just try that. Here we go. You needed help with number 6 as well? Yeah, number 6, I think we could use number 6 in this one. Let's look at number 6, because a lot of people have questions about this one. I just have a solution here. We can just kind of go through it. So this is literally a modulo implementation, right? Write a function called Modulo, which is a silly name, but it's just a modulo implementation and a function. So modulo takes in 2 numbers and returns the remainder after dividing num1 by num2. It should behave as described in Python documentation for the modulo operator given in this section. You can visit that link. Should probably make that link clickable, but anyways. Yeah, let's just get into the code here. So in this code, I believe it says explicitly if the second number is equal to 0, then just return none, rather than getting a zero division error. So since there's no else to this if, and the only return is under this if, it's by default it's going to return none. So for all numbers, or all cases where m is not equal to 0 and the type of n is an int or a float and the type of m is also an int or a float, so we're just doing these conditions are just a type checking. We're just making sure the type and the value are valid before we actually run the code. And then this is the code. So for this one, let's see, let's do okay. So we have the quotient of n floor divided by m. However many times m goes into n times m, right? And if you look, that's very much what we're doing here. It's just that we know m is 2, right? This is like saying m equals 2, right? So so for example, if I wanted to see how many times 5 goes into 17, what's 5 mod 17, right? So that's going to be 17 over 5, floor divided by 5, so 5, 10, 15, 5 goes into 17 3 times without going over, times 3 times m, which is 5 again. That gives me 15. So 17 over 5 is 3, times 5 is 15. So 15 minus n, and then we just multiply. So that's just going to give me a negative number, right? That's going to give me negative 3, and then we just invert the sign by multiplying it by negative 1. So if that gives us a negative number, we get a positive number. If we get a positive number, we get a negative number. Now I'm wondering, did I need to do that? I'm looking at that, I'm like, did I just think about that really weird? Maybe I can just get away with doing this. N minus, for some reason I feel like I've tried this and it doesn't work, but I don't know. I don't remember why I did the times negative 1. Let's just see if this works, because I know that other one works. That works. Why did I do it that weird way? Okay. We don't need to do that, so we can just say n minus that. That's it's so funny. Sometimes you come back and you look at a solution and you're like, why did I do it that way? So this makes more sense to me. Yeah, so this time we're doing 17. This would be 17 minus 3 times 5, which is 15. 17 minus 15 is 17 mod 5. Okay. Now. Cool. And let's just see. Let's just use this. Let's go about this other one, number 7 here. Oops. You know, let's compose our functions together. Well, it's actually not composition, but I'm using that term wrong. So let's just do this will be Modulo and 2. Oh, that's num. Excuse me, num. And 2 is equal to 1. So that should also work. Cool. And if we wanted to use, obviously, if we want to use Modulo, it, you know, this cell and this cell are not aware of each other. They're two, you know, essentially 2 different files in 2 different places, and so one is not aware of the other, even though we're on the same, you know, URL web page and learn, you know. So if I want to use the Modulo, I have to actually paste that in. So that's another way we could solve this. Let me see. Let's do. Just copy that. I'm just going to record this like this. Oops. Oops. There we go. Turn that second solution on and off now. Let me run it and just save my stuff. Okay. This way I can come back and reference either versions of these later. So it's doing that for that reason. Cool. All right. Looks like we got that sorted out. All right. If anybody's got any other questions, feel free to get them ready. You know, and also to the person who asked, it doesn't look like there's a whole lot of questions coming in or anything. So feel free to put in another one if you've got another one. I'm just going to put a minute on the clock and give people an opportunity to get some questions in. Oops. Sorry about the weird windows there, but. Okay, cool. Not seeing any other questions, so I'm just going to jump into the material. Again, the material is, of secondary importance. If you have a question, put it in there and I'll go through it. Last time we left off on split and join. I talked a little bit about these, but I wanted to give these some more airtime because these are two really important, string methods here. Oops. Just accidentally reloaded the page. I always do this with Chrome. Okay. So something to remember here, join and split are both methods for lists. It can, when you kind of think about what they do, it can kind of seem like, I think the pitfall is that it can be easy to see join as a list method, and it's not. It's a string method. So let's look at these again. Okay, I'm just going to take my little sample text here. Excuse me. All right, so I've just got this little bit of sample text to play with. And I can, let's split this. This will be text.split. So the name of the variable is text, holds that big string. Text.split, need the parentheses. If I don't pass anything to split, so split's argument is optional here. If I don't pass anything, it's going to assume that I wanted to split on white space. And then, oh yeah, that'll just work like that. So let's see what this does. Okay, so this gives me a list of words. So that's what happens when you split on white space. If I split this string into elements, every time I see a new white space character, just split that into its own element in the list that split returns. Then I get a list of words. If I, I can also supply a character that I want to split on, right? So let's say I want to split on periods, right? So this is going to give me sentences. Why don't I do this? Okay, sentences. I probably spelled that wrong. Apologies if I did. I know that bothers some people, but I am dyslexic and I'm just not going to worry about it. Okay, so here's sentences. If I split on periods, that's going to give me every sentence, right? Okay, so this is the new list of elements, right? So if you look, right, we've got this as an element, and then it ends here, and we create a new element, right? And that's because if we come back up to the text here, that's where that period was. So every time it encounters a period, it's going to do that. Might also notice we have questions as well. So maybe I want to split, if we look here, right, this first sentence is actually a question. So I might want to replace all the question marks. So text.replace all the question marks with periods. So I can split on those periods, right? Now if I do this, right? So you can see that first element is going to end there now, right? So I just converted it to the thing that I knew I wanted to split on, and then now I can split on multiple things. And that tends to be this is kind of the way you split on multiple things. You know, you'll pick one thing to split on, and you'll replace all the things that you want to split on with, you know, the thing that you're actually splitting, which is the dot. Something to note here. Notice, you know, in the words list, there are no, since it's split on all white space characters, there are no spaces, right? Each element contains, you know, various characters. If there were numbers, it would contain numbers. It has capital and lowercase. It has punctuation characters. If we look, you know, R with a question mark dangling off of it, right? So it's kind of it's a pretty dumb operation, right? There's not a lot of nuance to it. It's not really trying to give us words. It's just trying to give us everything in between spaces, which is essentially words, right? That basically we know that to be words. If we wanted to clean this up so that we actually got clean words that were standardized case, right? So everything's lowercase or something. That would probably be more useful for doing, you know, some sort of analysis on the words in a sentence, is to get all the punctuation and all the casing removed out of there. So we would have to do that work separately. You know, split gets us pretty close, but it, you know, its only job is to just give me the things in between whatever I'm splitting on, right? Which is spaces in this case. So same thing here, where this is where we split on periods. You know, this element is defined by the beginning of the string and a period at the end. But notice the period is not here. It's not somehow here. It's not anywhere. It just goes away. So whatever you split on is removed, and you have to just remember that. Yeah, okay, I think I'll just leave those there. Okay, so this is our sentences. So imagine, so this is my sentences. I'm doing this text.replace question mark with period, and then splitting on all periods, so I get all sentences, whether they're questions or statements. I'm getting all the sentences. Let's see here. So imagine I want to join this back into a string. I want to convert this list of strings back into a single string. I've got sentences here, so I can say string again, silly variable name, equals, now what I'm going to do is I'm going to say period, string with a period on it, dot join, see if I can actually spell it, join sentences. Nope, well that would have worked, but I actually want to just plug in the variable name. Okay. So join is very much the inverse operation of split. Let's get rid of this. Actually, I'm going to leave that there because I want to show that version of it as well. But let's do this, right? So we'll just do this simply, right? So you quite often see split used like this, where we have some variable that evaluates to some body of text dot split on some delimiter that's often a string literal just plugged in there, or potentially some other variable, right? This is a pretty typical way of using split, though. And this is a pretty typical way of using join, and it looks different. And I think this is kind of the challenge, is, you know, it's easy to think, oh, well, if split takes a list and takes a string and gives me a list, is called on a string and gives me a list based on the delimiter, then join is called on the list and gives me a string. Join does give you a string, but it is also called on the string to be used as the delimiter in the new string. So if I print out, let's print out string again. Oops. No. Just deleting it. What? Okay. There we go. Not much surprising here. I just turned it back into the string we had initially, right? So what happened? We split on periods. We got sentences, and then we joined with periods as the delimiter. So we joined the string, the list of strings back together into a string. So the string that you call join on is the thing that's going to be the separator in the new string, right? So if I put dashes in here or something like that, then this substring is going to be the thing separating everything, right? So we're going to get these weird dash he thingies instead of periods, right? If I had done, let's do words, right? Then we get the weird dash he thingy separating every word, right? So we get to decide what that delimiter is, and that's the string that we call join on. I think it feels a little counterintuitive at first, but you get used to it, and it's fine. There is the potential for information loss. Of course, if we do this, there's ways around this, but if I wanted to like split on, or if I wanted to replace the dots with question marks, excuse me, let's try that again. If I wanted to replace the question marks with periods and then split on the periods, I've kind of, at least doing it this way, I've kind of lost the ability to like reconstruct where the question marks went. Without having like some other system to handle that, right? So, excuse me, sorry. So if I do this, so sentences is going to be text that replace question marks with periods and then split on periods, and then string again is going to be period dot join sentences. So remember, we're converting question marks to periods and splitting on all of those. So let's see what happens. We're not, I mean, like I said, we're not going to have our question marks back. So whose woods these are period instead of the original, which is whose woods these are question mark, right? So there is that potential for some information loss. And really the way you get around this is kind of nested looping and splitting in loops, and you can kind of accumulator pattern your way out of that whole mess if you needed to, but it's a whole can of worms. Can't say it comes up that often, so I think we don't need to get into it, honestly. All right. Let's see here. Do feel free to put in any questions you have about the materials. I'm going through it too. So since I'm not seeing anything, I'm just gonna assume that everybody is synthesizing the knowledge at 100% comprehension rate, because my ability to explain things is unparalleled and amazing. So cool. I'm just gonna go through here, kind of scan through here, make sure I didn't miss anything that's worth mentioning. Oh, that's kind of interesting. I forget about this. I sort of rediscover it from time to time. Yeah. I can't say that I've ever needed to use this other than like when I've gone through material and it says, oh, well, split takes a parameter called max split that lets you kind of limit the number of times it's going to split. So, not saying that it's not useful. I don't think I've personally found a use for it or needed to use it ever. Let's just look at that real quick. I'll just do this. So like, let's say if I just wanted to split on the first sentence and then make everything after that, excuse me, gosh. I get hiccups right when I'm streaming, like good timing. Okay. So everything after that is just going to be one element, right? So if we look at this list, this is still splitting on periods, right? But there's only 2 elements in this list. This list has a length of 2, right? And we have that first sentence, and then, if we went through here, here's a period that didn't get split, so on and so forth. So that'll tell me, that'll tell split how many times you want to split. Like I said, I'm not sure when that's actually useful, but hey, you will certainly encounter situations, in your programming adventures, which I haven't encountered, so I won't claim to know every situation. CSV data. This is kind of a fun one. CSV is a really common way of formatting data. As I'm sure some of you know, CSV just stands for comma-separated values, right? So you get a big document full of various values that are just separated by commas, and it's a pretty brute force, simple way of formatting data, and there may be a schema to a particular CSV document that is unique to that, right? Like, so it might be in groups of like 5 elements or something, where you have like somebody's name, their age, their favorite color, their city they grew up in, and the I don't know, their favorite flavor of ice cream or something. So, right, like you might have like sort of data that rotates through each of those, and it better be formatted perfectly, right? Better not have corrupt CSV data, which is a whole thing unto itself. But so CSV data can be pretty varied, but at the end of the day, it's just whatever values just separated by commas. And we usually will just deal with it when we're dealing with it. It's a string, we just pull it in from a text document, and by default, that's just a string. So in this case, we can split it on commas, and that'll give us the ability to iterate through it. If it is truly comma separated. I wonder if this is actually an interesting question. I just thought of this. If there is truly a canonical standard of CSV formatting, if there's because there are some other things, and I guess really the only other thing that I know about CSV is commas do separate values. Obviously, it's called comma separated values, but in a lot of CSV standards, the new line character can also separate values. So the new line character is usually represented with \n. So let's just kind of look at this real quick. So if we had CSV data, let's play around with this. Here's our CSV data. And I'll just make this a multi-line string. Oops. Actually need to change that up there as well. Oh no, that's good. Good. Okay. Need to do this. Okay. So let's say instead of a comma there, I'm going to put in a line break. And this is a valid way to format a lot of CSV documents. I think we're about to look at a problem that's very similar to this, right? So not only commas are separating values, but notice how, 126.1 and its prior number 156.9, they're not separated by a comma, right? They're separated by a new line. So this gets us back to that problem of like, how do we split on multiple things? So let's say if I wanted to, for data point in CSV list, right? So I've got to create this CSV list so I can do whatever I want to do to each of my data points, which I'm just going to print for now. Okay, so this is the challenge, CSV list. How are we going to create this? And let's make sure that these are integers. This will be at an additional level of, just make sure that these are all going to be able to be converted to integers. And let's divide them by 2. There we go. Okay, so CSV list is going to be CSV data equals CSV data dot split. Let's just try commas. I think it'll actually, well, I'm not sure, I don't know about that new line. I don't think that int is going to be able to convert it, but we'll see. Yeah, so here we go. This is what I was expecting. We got a value error, invalid literal for int with base 10, 512. Ooh, this is actually 512.8. So, right, the reason it can't do that is this is a float. So let's actually convert to a float. Okay, cool. So what this did is it split on commas only, and we ended up with one of the elements. This is an element, one single element that is in our list here, right? 156.9 new line 126.1. This is not a valid float, right? And it's not just because of this. It's because what does it mean for there to be 2 dots in a float? You could conceivably think that, okay, well, maybe it would ignore that space, but it doesn't delimit the 2 values, right? A float doesn't have 2 dots in it. That's not something that a float in Python can handle, or any language that I'm aware of. But I don't know what kind of number has 2 dots in it, but not this one, not a float. So this is not going to work, and it might be because it can't convert a new line, which I'm not quite sure if that's the case, but it is definitely because a float does not have 2 dots in it, even if it can and does ignore that new line character, right? So we've got to get this actually to split on new lines as well. So I think what we can do, we can dot replace \n with comma, and then that should do it. I've done this in a completely different way before, and I'm not sure why I didn't just do it this way, but hey, I don't know. I guess you learn as you go. Silly. Oh, I remember. I think we're going to get to that problem that I'm thinking of where I did it the other way. I think that will be clear. Okay, cool. Join, we talked about this. We have our delimiter string, we call join on, and then we join the method back together. or excuse me, we pass the list to join, and it has to be a list of strings. Okay. Yeah, this is just kind of reiterating that thing, right? The string that you call join on is the thing that acts as the delimiter, which, yeah, can kind of be counterintuitive. You do get used to it though. The calling object, string object on which the string join is called. Da, da, da. Okay. I'm wondering where. Yeah, this is the problem that I was thinking of, I believe. Okay, we'll work our way up to that one. Okay, so write a function called list to stir, which takes a list of characters and concatenates them into a string. So this is our test. Oops. We'll take in a list and we'll return empty string dot join. So notice there is no delimiter in this string, right? It just joins everything right together, just side by side. So we'll just join list. This function is just a wrapper for join with no delimiter. We could have an optional delimiter. Oops. Could have an optional delimiter. Let's call it a delim, and we'll just by default we'll set it equal to empty string, and I'll just do a star here so we can't accidentally pass something. We have to access it only as a keyword. Oops. So delim. So this allows us to set a custom delimiter, but you know that is literally not what this question is asking us to do, though. This is just me going off the rails and just talking about what we could do. So yeah, this should work. And then if we wanted, because I'm having fun, we'll do delim equals space, and that'll give us a space. Again, not that that function needs to have that behavior at all, but I think that should do. Yay. Okay. Join and split challenge. Number 2. Implement the function called split and join according to its doc string. Okay. Splits the string on occurrence of its delimiter. And it looks like it rejoins it. So I wonder if we could cheat and just use replace on this. That looks like what this is effectively doing. Let's try to do it the legit way, and then I'll see if I can cheese it. So let's see. Let's get some text in here. I'll just do a little bit of this text so we don't have a whole ton of it. That first little stanza. Okay, so we'll say text, and then what should our delimiter be? I don't know. Let's just, it's no longer grammatical, but I'm just going to throw a few more periods in here. Yeah, I don't know. There we go. And then we'll split on periods, and then our new delimiter will be ampersand. How about that? So I should expect this text back with all the periods replaced by ampersands. Okay. So this will simply be, let's copy these down. String, I wonder if I can do this. Return string dot split on delimiter, and then new delimiter, yeah. So we'll join this. So this will be new delimiter dot join whatever list string dot split delimiter gives us. Let's try that. Yeah, so there's my ampersands. Okay. Cool. Oh, and I said I would cheese it as well. I always recommend cheesing it, you know, because it's kind of fun. Let's return string dot replace. Actually, this isn't even cheesing it. This is actually the better way to do it. I don't know if it'll accept it. There might be some special exception being made or some slightly different behavior that I'm not anticipating, but let's find out. And it looks like it does. So string.replace in this case does the same thing. So remember, since split gets rid of the delimiter and join adds in its own delimiter, the operation together has the effect of replacing the delimiter with the new delimiter. So unless, of course, they are the same, which they might be. You know, you might split on periods and then rejoin on periods for obvious reasons. Okay, cool. So this is one I think I was thinking about earlier. Oops. There we go. Write a function called CSV square CSV. Ah, yeah. Okay, so this, I believe it takes in CSV and returns CSV. Yes, it does. That's why I did it in the way that I did it. Okay. CSV text. Okay. Let me do this. Okay. All right, this first one's going to be easy. The second one is going to be a little difficult. Okay, so let's do this. Let's just start with our for loop. We'll say for L, for element, and these are actually always going to be numbers, so I'm just going to call it in for in. Well, let's do for num in CSV text dot split on commas. And I'm going to uncomment that second one here in a second. And then we'll just say we need a res CSV result plus equals, you know what, I want this to be a list because I'm going to join it, right? So we will return CSV res dot, oops, C, comma, dot join. Okay. So I want to dot append int num, right? So this is, I'm just building for this particular test. That's all I'm doing right now. One test at a time. Didn't like that. Oh, we need a colon there. Let's see what's happening here. Yep. Okay, right. So I forgot to square it, and I forgot to recast it as a string. Right, so actually this is great. This is a great error, and I meant to show this earlier, but I forgot. So this says type error, sequence item 0, expected stir instance int found, right? Doesn't seem extremely helpful unless you happen to know join requires that the list being joined is a list of all strings. So this says, if we look at this error, it's pointing at this join line. Sequence item 0 just happens to be saying the first element in the sequence, that list, expected instance of string, but it found an int, and that's because I'm casting it as an int. Yeah, so I need to make all of those strings, right? So let's do this. Okay. There we go. And I'm just putting it in the spaces just so that it's visually easier to kind of see that when things are spread out, right? Here's what we're casting as a string. Here's int of the string num squared, and then recasting that as a string, and then appending that whole thing. Okay, let's try that. We're expecting 14916, and we get 14916. Okay, cool. So let's try the other one. So here's where things are going to get weird. For one thing, we've got floats. For another thing, we've got new lines, right? So if I try to run this here, similar thing to before, it's not going to know how to convert that to an int. Invalid literal for type int 13.0 \n7. It's not a valid integer. Okay, so we also need to separate those into their own elements, right? So I could do this. Actually, I can't do this, but in other cases, I would be able to do this. Dot replace \n with nothing. No, excuse me, with comma. That'll get me around one issue. We still can't convert a float to an int, so I think what I'm just going to do is just say if if dot in num, then we'll say res equals float num, we'll convert it to a float, else res equals int num, and I'm just making this, breaking this res variable out like this, and we'll replace the int num part with res, which will have the appropriate value. We'll raise that, we'll square that, we'll raise that to the power 2, and then cast it as a string, and it's business as usual. As usual. I get all the consonants in the right order with that one. Okay. Cool. So let's see. And there's still a problem with this, which is that if we look at our output here, it's expecting that new line to be in the output. So we do have the correct, I think we have the correct, let's see, the correct numeric values. We're expecting 125, 169.0, 49, 4, 123.21, and we're getting 125, 169.0, 49, yep, 49, 4, yep, and 123.21, 123.21, good. So yeah, we're really close. We have the correct numeric values, but we need that. We actually need to preserve the position of that new line, right? So what we can do, we have to forego this convenient little replace here, and we have to go so we can think of each. If we split on new lines, that would give us a row, right? We can think of each new line as delimiting a row of data, right? So for, and I'm going to call it row because that's convenient. So for row in CSV text.split on \n. That's going to give me a row. If I split on the new lines, that's going to give me a row. And then we'll say for num in, we need to change this as well. So for num in row dot split comma. So remember, so row is still a CSV string. It just doesn't have the new lines in it. Yeah, so what we do is we just split that row on commas, and that's going to give us each of our number here, right? And then we can go about, if there's a dot in the comma, then it's a float. If there's not, then it's an int. Let me just kind of cinch this down a little bit. Clean that up. Okay, that's nice. And then we'll append the res squared, convert as a cast as a string, and then append that to CSV res. Let's run this. I think we're going to get the same answer, the same wrong answer. Yes, we do. Right. So we still need to make sure that we have each row separated by a new line. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to have a new accumulator target. I'm going to do a row list. You know, maybe I should call this CSV row. Let's call that CSV row, because it's a still comma separated values, right? So, and then row list will be an empty list. We'll append the actual elements, the actual numeric elements. Again, casting them as strings, we'll append that to row list, and then every time we make it through all the elements in the row, we will join the row and append that. So we'll join the row with commas, and we will dot append into CSV res. And I should probably call this, this is not a great name. Let's call it CSV list. That's what it is. So we'll join the row on commas. The row is now, like it started, it's just, it's a row of comma separated values in a string. It's just that each element separated by comma is a squared version of the original. We're going to append that list or that string into here, and then after we make it through both of these for loops, or this outer for loop completely, and we're done looping altogether, we will join all the rows in the list with new lines. Whew. Nope. Row is not defined. Oh, is it? It's row list. Sorry. Yes, that's it. CSV res is not defined because I changed it. Just didn't catch up to my variable name changes. Okay, cool. And there we have the appropriate numbers, and then the new line is actually rendered here. It's actually a new line character. It actually shows up as a new line character rather than a \n, which is just how we represent it in line in text like this. Okay, cool. Let's try that out. Nope. Well, that's I really take the wind out of my sails there. All right. Well, let's see. Let's read this error. Assertion error. I guess I just got the wrong value. Let's make sure about this. So 125.169.0, new line, 49.4.123.21. Okay, so it is passing these tests. So what test is it not passing here? So it's saying oh wait, what was I supposed to return? Write a function called taken, then return the squared numbers in the original CSV format. The CSV contains a new line which should be preserved. Any float objects should be rounded. Oh, rounded to 2 decimal places. That's what I didn't do. So let's do, I think we just do round. I never remember if it's one way or the other way. This isn't going to matter for this one anyways. It's just probably going to give me an error. Well, is it the other way? I never remember with round. I don't end up using it that much. I think it is this way. Okay. Float object cannot be interpreted as an integer. Huh. Type error. Float object cannot be interpreted as an integer. Am I? Oh. I see. It's because I had the arguments backwards. I must have been getting a different error. Okay, so this is working correctly. And it looks like I've still got these really long floating point numbers in here. So that's interesting. I have to reteach myself how to use round, evidently. So let's do Python 3. So 10 over 3 is going to give me a really long float. So if I round 10 over 3 to 2 places, that does work. What the heck is this problem then? Not equal to that. So that definitely looks like that's what that's expecting. Okay. Well, that's a real doozy. I guess I'll just make my own test here and just see if I'm actually getting the correct result here. And let me see if I do 10.3 to the squared. I got to get a number that's actually going to 10.3 squared. Okay. Oops. Let's try that. So that should be working. What a strange thing. So why can't I figure that out? Mastiff to none. Am I returning? Yep, I sure am. Traceback, most recent call, last. Methods, line 35. Actual, expected. Okay, yeah, that's what I thought. So this is telling me that actual is like what I actually got, and expected. So this is strange to me because it's saying that I got these long floats when I'm using round. Oh, I get it, because I'm doing I'm rounding here, but I'm raising to the power here. Right. So I think what I want to do in that case, we'll break these out. Gosh, that's so obvious now. We'll just do the append right in line like this, and we'll replace res with float num, and we'll round right here. Oops. And get rid of that. I guess I could have squared it in res. I like that better. I'm going to do that. Okay. Going back and forth here. Okay, so res equals float num squared or int num squared. There we go. And then we'll just do string of res here. Whew. Okay. Oh, gosh. What a silly error. Okay. Okay, cool. Let's let's do that here. Sometimes you just get in a weird way of thinking about things and you're like, why isn't it working? But it just happens. Okay. All right, we've got about 15 minutes left before our normal stopping point. So go ahead, feel free if you've got any questions, go ahead and bring them in. All right. Cool. We're just starting intermediate Python. Good. I'm not going to go through the self-placement challenges because these are for you all. I have people ask me about these from time to time, and really the point of these is they're meant to be a gauge, you know, a metric for you to determine how far you should start in there. So if I show solutions for those, it kind of defeats the purpose a little bit. Is this one defunct now? Here we go. So by the end of this unit, you'll be able to cast strings to lists, split strings, change the case of strings, replace part of a string. Strings, functions, and methods. That's what we're going to get into today. Okay, so this is talking about casting a string to a list, and this really kind of dovetails with what we were talking about split and join. I definitely think of split as a way of converting a string to a list. It's not the only way. We can literally cast a list as a string as well with the list function. Let's get a little bit of text. So if I okay, cool. So here's each character of the string as its own element in the list. And this is what happens when we cast a string to a list in this way. Let's see. Yep, I mean, those are several examples. Let's see. So print me The space is a character, so that's going to be in the list there. These are all going to be pretty straightforward. Split and sum. Complete the function called split and sum. This function should take a single parameter called number stir that is a string consisting of numbers. This function should split the string apart and sum the numbers together and return the sum. Okay, so I'm trying to see. The function should take a single parameter called number string that is a string consisting of numbers. Okay. Digit characters. This function should split the string apart and then sum the, I think this should be called digits instead of numbers. Sum the digits together and return the sum. Okay, so if we do sum of I'm going to end up using map. Sum of map int list. Actually, I'm just going to do this. This is not the intended way of doing this. I think that'll work though. Let's see. Okay, that does work. I'm like, I'll just do it this way. Let me actually do it what is probably the intended way. So for num in list number string total equals we'll do plus equals int num, and then we need to create total equals 0 and return total as well. Cool. Write a function called split remove. This function should take a parameter called the stir. Okay. Def split remove takes in the stir, which contains a string. The function should return a list of the given string with all of the vowels removed. Be careful not to change the case of the string. Okay, so we'll just do this as an accumulator. So let's just call this res equals this, and we'll return res. Oops. I'll say for character in the stir. Yeah, this actually has to be a list, and we'll say if character not in A-E-I-O-U, and I'm just going to do lowercase vowels there, and we'll say ch.lower. So if the lowercase version of the character is not a vowel, and for this for the purposes of this function, y is not considered a vowel, then we'll res.append ch, and that should work as well. Cool. We're going to be getting into split again. Okay, cool. So we're about, again, we're getting into another topic here, and we've got about a little less than 5 minutes left to our normal stopping point. So I think I'll just wrap up here for today. Yeah, thanks to the person who brought in a question today. Do appreciate the interaction. hope everybody enjoyed this. Feel free to DM me if you have any feedback, any suggestions, if you have any other questions regarding the material. I'm available for one-on-one mentoring if you want to meet for that. So yeah, look forward to hearing from you. You all have a great rest of your day, and I'll see you next study hall, which will be Wednesday at the same time. Cool. All right, y'all have a good rest of your day. Bye-bye.